It's another edition of Time About the Movies. We're in the middle of June 1990, June 15th, and we're still in the copycat summer. The summer, of course, trying to repeat the success of last summer. And this week we have two movies that came out that are reminiscent of what we got last year, sort of. I'll explain as we go along. Mainly that we have the big comic book movie, because of course last year Batman was the big comic book movie that broke box office records, changed the course of the box office as we know it. And so Disney looked at that and said, you know what? We want to do the same thing, so let's do Dick Tracy. And let's do it with Warren Beatty. So here's Dick Tracy with Warren Beatty. Just like Batman, Dick Tracy was in production hell for a number of years, was in development for the longest time in the 1980s. The writers of this are the guys that wrote Top Gun, but this also had a number of different directors on it, just like Batman did. This one had Steven Spielberg at one point, John Landis was attached to direct it at one point, Walter Hill, Richard Benjamin, and then eventually they came down to Warren Beatty, who also stars in the film and also produces the film. And, you know, I gotta say, this movie doesn't get a lot of the same attention that Batman does, but I think this is a really good, well-made movie. I think this is a very good movie. Not quite up to Batman levels, but still, just there's so much about this movie to appreciate. The fact that it does feel like a 1930s comic book movie. And Warren Beatty, I think he did well enough as Dick Tracy. I think he did a pretty good job in this role. Madonna in particular was really good playing Breathless Mahoney. I thought she was very good in this. You also have can't remember her name now. Glenn Headley playing Tess Trueheart, and I like the chemistry that her and Madonna have with Warren Beatty's Dick Tracy character, and even Charlie Korsmo playing the kid in this movie. You know, it's easy for kid characters and supporting characters in movies like this to be kind of annoying, just because they're supposed to be the second banana. Of course, the most obvious one was Short Round Indiana Jones, but no, Charlie Korsmo was actually a pretty good kid actor back in the day. He was also in Hook, too. And he was also in Can't Hardly Wait. But I think in this movie, he did a pretty good job playing off of Warren Beatty. And talk about a great cast this movie had, because you have Al Pacino playing Big Boy Caprice. I think he was fantastic in this movie. Over the top, very, very comic booky, very pulpy, very over the top. And he's a ton of fun to watch in this movie. And it surprised me that he actually got an Academy Award nomination for this, which is surprising, especially when you consider that he didn't get one for Godfather Part 3, I believe. I don't think he got one for Godfather Part 3, but this is the one that he gets the nomination for, and I liked him in Godfather 3, but I'm actually kind of surprised he got the nomination here. You also have Dick Van Dyke in this, Michael J. Pollard, Charles Durning, Kathy Bates, Seymour Cassell, the villains in the movie, Dustin Hoffman is Mumbles, William Forsythe as Laptop, Edo Ross, James Tolkien, Mandy Patinkin, Paul Sorvino, Chuck Hicks, James Caan, Catherine O'Hara. Just a phenomenal, phenomenal cast in here. The visuals in this movie are still very impressive. Like, the settings look incredible. Like, even for a movie that's over 30 years old, it looks something. It's supposed to look like something straight out of the comic books. It's a very matte painting type of setting in the background. You can tell it's a green screen, but it's a very well done green screen. I think they did a phenomenal job with this movie. Danny Elfman's score is fantastic. The action sequences are very well done. It's a fun movie. It's a well-made movie. I had a lot of fun watching this movie the first time about a decade ago. It still holds up every time I watch it. It's a very good, well-made movie. It unfortunately doesn't get the attention I think it deserves, but I don't think it deserves the same caliber that something like Batman and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, these movies that kind of revolutionized the comic book movie genre and would give us more movies like this in the years to come. But unfortunately, it didn't do quite as well as Batman did. I think it just barely crossed the $100 million mark domestically, and Disney was kind of expecting a lot more from this, but it's unfortunate, because I really would have liked to see what Warren Beatty would have done with a sequel to this, but I mean, for a one-shot movie, this is still a pretty good movie that still holds up a lot to this very day. So, if you haven't seen Dick Tracy, I definitely say check it out. I think it's definitely well worth your time. So, we had the comic book movie and now we have, I want to say, the comedy that came out the same weekend to counter program the comic book movie, but this is also 1 year ago we had Ghostbusters 2, and here we have the other sci-fi horror comedy of the 80s with a sequel, and that is Gremlins 2: The New Batch. So kind of like Ghostbusters 2, Gremlins 2: The New Batch doesn't get the same amount of respect that the original movie does. But in a way, I actually have to give them credit for the stuff that they were able to do here, because Joe Dante obviously looked at this and said, "Okay, let's go for something a little more cartoonish. Let's make it not as dark as the original film. Let's have slapstick, over the top humor with it, and let's just have fun with it." And I think that what we get on screen here is a very fun movie. It's not on the same level as the first movie. That's kind of to be expected, but you're still getting a lot of great stuff in this movie. You've got great practical effects here. The Gremlins are still fun to watch. Zach Gilligan and Phoebe Cates work off each other very well. John Glover's always going to be a ton of fun to watch. You've got a great cast in here with a lot of great cameos. Robert Picardo, Christopher Lee, Hulk Hogan has a cameo in this that's very good. You also have Julia Sweeney, Henry Gibson, Leonard Maltin, the Stanton brothers, who would be in Terminator 2 later on the next year. Kathleen Freeman, just a phenomenal cast all around, even from the voice actors. Howie Mandel is back as Gizmo. Tony Randall was the Brain Gremlin, is a ton of fun. Frank Walker's in this. I mean, they even got Bugs Daffy, and Porky in this, in the opening and the end credits too. It's interesting because they had Chuck Jones come out of retirement to work on this animation, which I don't know honestly, it really doesn't play to the story, obviously, but it's interesting to have him in there. I guess they were trying to see if Looney Tunes could still work in the 1990s in movie form, and well, we did get a couple of shorts, and then we had Space Jam in the mid-90s, but I mean, I thought it was fun. It was fun to watch. Like, it's most of this movie. It's goofy fun. It knows it's playing over the top all around. It even makes fun of itself. It knows what kind of a movie it is. It knows how incredibly silly and ridiculous it's going to be. And it's just like, you know what? Kudos to you guys. I mean, you did a great job of just going straight up over the top and just making it work as well as it did. I mean, I think this movie is very underrated. It's still it's a very funny movie. Great practical effects, great action, great comedy, great suspense, great over-the-top humor. It's just a good, fun, campy movie, and you wouldn't expect anything less from Joe Dante. Yeah. Gremlins 2: The New Batch is a fantastic movie. Need I say more? So, with that said, that's going to wrap up another edition of Time About the Movies. The next time we meet up for another one of these, it'll be June 22nd. And we have 3 movies to talk about, the biggest one being the sequel to 1987's RoboCop, RoboCop 2. We also have Betsy's Wedding, and we also have May Fools. So we'll have 3 movies to look at next time around as we continue into the summer of 1990. So thank you guys for watching, and as always, if you want to see more videos like this, check out the playlist on the next page. Check out the previous episode. We'll have a new Movie Stop episode on this channel tomorrow, so I'll see you guys for that. If you're waiting for the next Time About the Movies, it'll be Sunday night. So either way, I'll see you sometime this weekend. Hope you have a good Memorial Day weekend. Stay safe, and as always, take care.